Okay, please be seated. You can call your next witness.
Keep your voice up.
Stand by the chair. Right here, face me, raise your right hand. You solemnly affirm the evidence you shall give relative to the cause now under consideration shall be the whole truth and nothing but the truth under pains and penalties of perjury.
I do.
Please be seated. You're going to pull your chair forward, speak into the microphone.
Okay.
And we're going to pull a little closer. Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Hi,
Please state your name for the jury.
Susan Janes,
And what is your town or city of residence?
Jericho, Vermont.
And are you employed?
I am.
And how are you employed?
I'm a nurse practitioner.
With who?
Right now with University of Vermont Medical Center. I was not different. It was different at the time of the incident.
Okay. And how long have you been a nurse practitioner?
9 years.
Have you had any other medical training?
I was a nurse before that, OBGYN, and before that I was an EMT.
I'd like to take you back to October 8, 2016, sometime late that night. Do you have that date and time in mind?
I do.
Can you tell us, please, if you were traveling I-89 on that date and time?
I was
And where were you coming from?
from Winooski,
And where were you going to?
home to Jericho.
So you were taking 89, traveling south?
Correct.
All right.
Yep.
At some point, did something out of the ordinary happen when you were on 89?
Absolutely.
Okay. So tell us, please, approximately what time it was?
Sometime just before midnight, I think, right around midnight.
And tell the jury what you first saw.
So we were traveling southbound on Route 89, and as we approached French Hill, we saw, just out of the blue, a big black piece, looked like a piece of a vehicle, and we knew that we were coming upon something. We also could see up ahead of us a couple of cars that had stopped, so we saw some brake lights up ahead, and this is one of the many memories of that night that go in slow motion, even though it happened in a second. We swerved to avoid that big piece of debris. We got into another chunk of debris, had to swerve the next way. Then in front of us was a vehicle across the road. We had to swerve to get around that. And then beyond that, we saw another vehicle down in the median on fire.
When you say we, who was with you?
My partner, Roger Klein.
So did you pull over to the side of the
We did,
road? And what
yes.
did you do?
I asked him to pull over because I knew something had just happened. There were no other rescue vehicles on the scene. There were only a few other cars ahead of us, so
Was
to try to help.
I apologize.
Yeah, that's okay.
Was anybody out and about when you got there?
So
Walking around?
when we pulled over, as soon as we pulled over, a man approached our car from the Richmond side, so came toward our car and came right to the window, and we rolled down the window. I asked if anybody needed help, and he indicated that he didn't know, yes, probably, and also asked us to really wanted us to turn our emergency flashers on. He was very concerned with keeping scene safety, and was really afraid a car was going to come flying down the highway, which we almost did, and crash into that debris.
So you pulled to the side of the road, parked, and what did you do?
So I got out of the car and looked at the scene. I saw the car down in the median on fire. I was really afraid to approach it. It was really on fire. So I stood for a minute. I looked to see if anyone was moving. I could see anything that looked like anyone needed help, and I didn't see anything there. So I went to the other vehicle that was across the median, which is basically right next to me. So I approached it sort of from behind and came up on the passenger side of the vehicle. I could see that the airbags had deployed. I couldn't see in to the vehicle. I remember putting my flashlight on my phone, walking around the front of the vehicle, and the driver's side door was open. And I looked in to see if there was anybody in the car, and I didn't see anyone. There was also a back seat to the car. There was no one in the back seat. Yeah.
When you were checking do you remember what kind of vehicle it was?
You know, it was a messed up vehicle. At the rear of the vehicle was, you know, mangled. There was debris there, and to me it looked like, in my mind, I thought it was like a small SUV, but I think it was just like the cab of a vehicle that I was actually seeing.
Was anybody with you as you were checking that
So
vehicle?
Roger was behind me, and at that point another responder approached as well, and I remember the two of us conversing, you know, that we didn't see anyone in the vehicle.
Okay. So at that point, what did you do next?
So then I immediately turned my attention to the car in the median. Well, first of all, I will say that I was alarmed initially. I looked around because I could see that this was a really serious accident, and I was, as a medical provider, worried that there was either someone who was injured from that vehicle wandering around, or that, and this has happened at other emergency scenes that I've been to, that the driver of that vehicle had left the scene. So I was unsettled. It was unsettling. But I did turn my attention, when I didn't see anyone, to the vehicle down in the median, and was standing at the top of the median looking to see if there was anything I could do. That was where I went next with my attention.
At some point, did law enforcement?
So very shortly after that was when the Williston police officer pulled up.
Okay.
Exactly.
And what do you remember observing what he did?
Oh, absolutely. He got out of the car and ran immediately to the vehicle. He was absolutely incredible. It was probably the most amazing bravery that I have ever witnessed. He worked really hard to get to the victims. He had a fire extinguisher. He tried to break the windows. He went to several doors, wrapping his jacket around his hand, trying to open the doors, just trying to help the victims.
And what did you then do?
So as I was watching this, I was looking at the vehicle vehicle very carefully, and I saw a darkening in the grass, a dark area in the grass behind the vehicle. And at the same time, another first responder started down the embankment to my left. I started down because I was realizing that there was a person in the grass. So I ran down, and the two of us met there. My partner, Roger, was behind us. And we went down there, and there was a female in the grass that was later identified as Mary Harris behind the car.
And so what did you do?
So she was positioned just behind the driver's side rear tire. So very, very close to the burning vehicle, and we wanted to examine her. She was not breathing, so we knew we would probably have to do CPR. So I suggested that we move her away from the burning vehicle, which I didn't actually move her. I'm not sure which of the other three men that were there did it, but a combination of the officer, Roger, and the other person who eventually did CPR with me moved her, I want to say not far, 10, 15 feet away. And then the other person who was there identified himself as a nurse. I identified myself as a nurse practitioner, and we started to work on Mary.
Okay. And how long did you actually work on her?
It's hard to say. 5, maybe 10 minutes. Total, you mean, from beginning to end?
Yes.
Yeah, I would say it was maybe 10 minutes. It's hard to say.
At some point, was a decision made to stop trying to resuscitate her?
Yes, so eventually other aid came. So a young Williston police officer brought us an AED, defibrillator, and then eventually a firefighter, who I assume was probably the incident command, came down, and we did one more cycle, and then he called the code.
And then what did you do at that point?
And then at that point I went back up to the scene, And you have to understand that we did not know anything that went on. So we were on an embankment down below. We did not know who was in the car. We did not know the circumstances of anything that had led up to the accident. To us, it was just an accident on the interstate. So we went, one of us, it was either me or the other nurse who was working on Mary, asked if he needed any help, the incident command, and he said, I have so many things going on up there, I don't even know what I need, can you come with me? So we went up, we followed him up the embankment back to the interstate. And do you want me to keep going?
All right, so you got up to the interstate. At that point, had you heard or seen anything additional?
So while we were doing CPR on Mary, we heard just a bizarre sound, which was a huge just whoosh coming from the Richmond side of the interstate, and then a huge, huge collision. So we didn't know what had happened. At that point, we were next to the car, which was getting hotter, and the tires were popping. We didn't know if the vehicle up on the road had blown up or what, but something had clearly happened. So when we came back up the embankment, it was a completely different scene than what we had left when we came down to help Mary.
So could you just please describe the scene?
I mean, it looked like a war zone. It looked like an Armageddon. It looked like, things had blown up. There was debris everywhere. There was another car on fire. There was a car upside down outside of the breakdown lane. There was just carnage. There was just stuff everywhere.
Did you go and talk to any of the people who were there up on the interstate?
So I did not. I followed the firefighter. He went to check. He told me to stay up above while he checked a vehicle that was turned over. And then I never saw him again. And I looked around, and there were emergency vehicles. There were other responders there. EMS was there, and I really felt like there wasn't really a place for me. I didn't see a place I could fit in.
Did you ever ask again what had happened to the driver of the truck that was there on the road?
Well, there wasn't really an opportunity. There was no one for me to talk to. At the end, so my partner and I decided that, we would probably be better moving our cars away and leaving the scene, and so we walked up to the back up French Hill toward our car, and there was a Richmond police officer at the end of the line of cars, so I went to give him my name, and at that time there was another, the man who had come to my window, who I later learned was Keith Porter, was there, and he had been hit and sort of filled me in on what had happened. It was just very difficult to comprehend.
So did you ever go back down into the median?
No, I did not go back down to the median, although I really wanted to. That was a really, really hard thing for me. And I remember saying to the police officer that I really wished someone could just be down there sitting with them. But I did not go back down.
Did you sit at all with Mary Harris when you were down there?
I did sit with Mary. And I was working on her doing CPR and felt very, very present to the fact that she was passing. I also was really, even though there was this whole emergency scene going on, I felt incredibly aware and almost a real obligation to be just super present to the fact that I didn't know who was in the vehicle next to us, but I knew that life was passing, and I feel very strongly that the passing of all life is sacred, and I felt a real obligation to just hold space, because really that's all I could do. I couldn't really do anything else except to hold space for something very sacred that was happening.
No questions, thank you.
Okay, thank you. You can step down.
Those are all of the witnesses, Your Honor, that the state has for today.
Okay. So, members of the jury, this isn't going to happen often, but we've run out of witnesses for today. So we're going to send you home earlier than we would normally send you home. I understand it's going to rain tomorrow, so this is your opportunity to enjoy the rest of today. You know my caution. This has obviously been covered extensively and continues to be covered extensively by the media. So we're going to continue to ask you to please honor your duty to avoid any exposure to the media in any way, shape, or form. Avoid conversations with anyone with respect to the case. Avoid conversations with each other with respect to the case. We'll see you back here bright and early tomorrow at 8:45, correct? And we will be ready to go at 9 sharp. Okay, so have a good night. Thank you.
All right.